Uh, Hello, everyone. Welcome back again to our session. This is Swahili Media Network. And today we have an important issue to discuss, which is related to criminal activities. So, if we were to giving a title to this session of ours today, it should be, or it is, Does Crime Pay Off? We're looking into whether doing crime or getting involved, is there any sort of benefit that you will receive uh, if you get to be engaged into criminal activity, or is there any financial benefits or financial profitability when you are involved in criminal activities? With me today, as usual, we have Brother Abdurrahman, we have Brother Bingi, co-host Omar Hussein, and Brother Yusuf on this session, and many others will be joining us along the way. Again, if you want to join us and have your voice or have your opinion on this, it is an open kind of channel, so you can click, you can look into the comment section. You will find a link, and you can join us live and give your opinion, ask questions, and getting involved. Get involved, please. So let's start straight away. And again, today I will start. But before I ask anyone any question, I have to say this. The perception could be different. There are people who might be benefiting somehow out of criminal activities or doing certain crime, let's say selling drugs. You may be, in short run, of course, you may be receiving some financial gains. So what we are discussing here is the weight of either side. Does the maybe small benefits of being involved in criminal activities, does it really pay off if you compare with the long run uh, maybe drawbacks or maybe long run consequences and so on? So we will be looking at the bigger picture rather than what you might be gaining now or in short run. So again, I will start with Brother Abdurrahman. Overall, I want to know your ideas. Does crime pay off?
Um, in my humble opinion, I don't believe it does. I think there's obviously the short term monetary gain, um, and I guess the people who our youth, our youngsters who are involved in it, that's what they look at. They look at quite short term. In the short term, they're able to buy the fancy clothes, the fancy cars. They're able to go out and do things that they want to do. They're able to go away on holiday, all those kind of things. So the short term monetary gain is there, but overall, in the long term, like you said, if you was to put it on some scales, so you just put crime and then you put all the things on the other side of the scale, how would it balance up? And I guess in discussion today, we can kind of like divulge into that and see whether or not overall does crime pay. I think the only ones it pays for is the ones who it works for, or who gain from it, is the actual prisons themselves. That's the business, and obviously the ones who are at the top of the chain, who are illegally legally doing those kind of activities. They're the ones who gain. The foot soldiers, as you would put it, the everyday criminal. For those people, I don't think it's any kind of gain at all. It doesn't add up.
Thank you, Brother Abdurrahman. That kind of kickstarts our discussion, and I like the way you put it. That there could be some benefits, and I'm glad you mentioned some, that some people might be attracted to those. You might see someone, for example, selling drugs, and all of a sudden he's driving a very fancy car, and to the eyes of some youngsters, they think, oh, this brother, he was nothing maybe 1 year ago, and all of a sudden there he is, and I know he is dealing with drugs. So maybe they that could attract, but the problem is they do not see the long-term consequences until when it is too late. So let me start with again continue with brother Bingi. what are some of the legal consequences of dealing with such activities? Can you just give us your view on that?
When you say the legal, just define exactly what I mean, so I know exactly how to answer it. 'Cause I could answer that in many ways, but I just want to know what in what concept.
I mean, what I mean is, you could be successful in short run, but we all know that eventually, no matter as big as you are, we have seen some. Let's say people who are selling drugs, they are the kingpins. Though they almost run an army, for example, in South America. But eventually, they end up facing the legal consequences. For example, being arrested or being chased by the police. So, anyhow you want to take it, what could be the legal consequences? Any angle you want to tackle this?
Okay, from a legal point of view, I'm going to answer it from when I seen this subject matter sent to me by Simeon, I look at it from this point of view. From a legal point of view, if if you make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 million, if you make this, if you make 2 million from selling drugs, let me see, and you have property in your name, you have your car, you have money going through your bank, and you could be selling drugs for 20 years and you've made 3, 4, 5 million or more. If the police catch you today, everything what you have there from a legal point of view can be taken away unless you can prove where you have got all your assets from over the last. Well, the police from a legal point of view can take your money and you can prove where you have got all your assets from over the last 20 years.
It's gone, yeah?
Uh, I think so. I think there is Brother Bengi has been disconnected, and actually he was in a very interesting point that we all know that when a person has earned so much out of any illegal activities, when such person falls into the hands of the authorities have the right to confiscate any of his assets, be it financial assets or even physical assets. They all can be confiscated, and it will be up to this person to prove to the authorities that he has earned such assets in a very legal way. And when you have earned such assets through drugs or through any sort of illegal activities, it will be very difficult for you to kind of prove to the authorities that this is how you've earned your money. I remember there were some few people who are back in time who got involved into the business uh, of credit cards fraud, and when they were caught, they were living almost a very good life in outwardly. But when they were caught, they went back beyond imagination. Why? Because everything was taken from them before even talking about maybe their prison sentence and things like that. So that is one thing. You could lose, just like the way you gain in maybe 20 years, you could lose everything in 2 days after working for so long doing some illegal activities. Thank you, brother Bengi. The technical people behind me will let me know if he's back. But let me come to you, brother Yusuf. We started seeing some financial consequences of gaining so much. How about those who are, let's say, on the ground, those who are not going to make the kind of amount of money Brother Bingi was mentioning, millions? No, they're not going to make that money. What is your view on those people as far as financial consequences is concerned? Those who are on the ground, please, Brother Yusuf.
From my to answer that question, it depends on the person. From the person on the ground, it depends on their morals and their characters. Just like Brother Abdul said, for a short time, it might be good. Like short time, you might have the money. It might be a good life for the short period of time until you get caught. And even if you don't get caught morally, and it depends on the person's character, for sometimes there's guilt that comes into play where you're doing something where it's illegal. If you're doing fraud, where you're stealing people's money every single day, it comes back to haunt you. You get if you have a good moral and a good character about you, you'll start to contemplate on the things that you're doing, and that in sense will get you to stop. Or sometimes you might get caught, and then you might have to, if you go away or if you lose everything, you start to think about your actions, and then you think about if it happens to you. So for the people on the ground, I say they have more of a chance of changing it around without facing severe consequences, or without losing too much where they can build up. But if you're comfortable and you have a net worth of say 1 million or much more, it will be easy. It will be harder for you to leave those circumstances because of the comfortability. Whereas if you're underground, it will be much more easier for you to leave and start building something which is legal, more than someone that's above you. So for the people underground, I think they're stuck in between a crossroad where it's good for us a short time until they realize that this is not my path, or some of them until they face the consequences of their actions, and they're able to turn their life around much quicker and much easier than the person that's above them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That is one of the issues, but also, Brother Omar, is Brother Bengi back online?
No, not yet.
Okay,
I
but
just wanted to add the act that you that we refer to in terms of the legalities behind assets is called the Proceeds of Crime Act. And that's able, like you said, it's able, you're able to go into it and take away the person's assets, and they can go back as far as they want as well. So when I look at it, look at it from a humane point of view, or even a spiritual or religious point of view, either way, it doesn't make any sense, because we know in the Quran, for example, it says if you harm somebody, it's like you're harming the whole of mankind. So if you're selling drugs to somebody and you're harming them or you're killing them, imagine the effects of that. That you're killing that person, plus you're harming their family, and there's a big harm in society. So when you look at it from the religious spiritual point of view, how much harm are you doing to the person and to the whole of society, creating addiction and so on and so forth. And if we go to the topic of what we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks, which is like knife crime and all that kind of stuff, in the interim, it may seem as though you're doing well and you're the big dog, but after you've been in prison for a certain amount of time, does your action really pay off? Does it really add up to the time that you spent in prison, and the time that you spent away from your loved ones and so on and so forth? Does it really add up? So does it really, any kind of crime, does it really pay off? Like you said, somebody could be rich today, tomorrow they're in prison for 15, 20 years and then come out, and they could pass away shortly afterwards. So can you really get that time back? Does it really pay? That's the big question. It's a good topic to divulge into, and hear the different concepts and the different thoughts of people.
thank you, Brother Abdurrahman. Let's go back to Brother Bengi. He was on his very important point, and unfortunately, there was some technical problem. Brother Bengi, go on.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up from where I was saying from a legal point of view. What I'm going to say is, I'm going to give from 2 points of view. The first point of view I'm going to give is regarding to the question, does crime pay? Which again, I think is subjective, because I do know that the people out there have made millions and never been to prison in their life. But I'm gonna come to that. First of all, I'm just gonna explain something. Somebody can be involved in crime for many years, whether it be selling drugs, selling weapons, fraud. White collar crime is one of the most lucrative criminal activities, which nobody never really highlights. And you could make over 10, 20 years, you could make 10, 20 million. And if you get caught tomorrow and you get arrested, you will go through a thing what they call proceeds of crime. And the police are only allowed to go back 6 years. But if you have a house what you bought 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and it's in your name, you will be liable to a proceeds of crime where you can lose that. Lose anything that you got in your bank account and anything that's in your name. So from that point of view, crime won't pay, because if you are involved in crime for many, many years and you made many, many millions and the police catch you one time, then you could lose everything that you've lost for that 20 years, for you made for that 20 years, also lose your liberty. So from that point of view, you're not going to really crime is not going to be paid. However, you do have some high-level criminals who sit down behind a desk and are involved in what they call corporate fraud, healthcare fraud, and other type of fraud. And they can do that for years and years and years and never get detected, and they make millions from it. Without being too controversial, but I'm going to, because that's me. The government, to me, they're involved in high-level fraud, and they make millions and millions and millions from a crime point of view. Because if they get caught, it's a criminal proceeds same way, but they never really do. They will make money from criminal activities. The majority of people involved in crime do not benefit from it. Because if you think about the people who are involved in crime, which said what they call they describe this as mid-rate offenders, which is about 70–80% of criminals. They only make money for today. They don't make money for years and years to come. And like Simeon said earlier, you can end up in prison, away from your family, lose your liberty, get sick in prison and die and never come out. So from that point of view, you will lose.
Thank you, Brother Bingi. You made the point very, very clear. We're moving on, and we're still on the consequences of being involved in criminal activities, be it selling drugs or maybe knife crime or firearms or any sort of activities. Now, let's talk about the physical consequences. We know that some people can be seriously harmed as a result of being involved in such activities, maybe the offender or maybe just the victim. So I would like to give you opportunities to tell us a little bit on that area. So should we start with Omar Hussein?
Just pass it to Brother Abdurrahman.
Abdurrahman, go on.
What, back to the point again. What was it? What was it that you wanted to?
Physical consequences, maybe harming other people or being harmed yourself. That could be one of the consequences of being in the crime, being involved in the crime.
I would take that back to the spiritual or religious side of things, because like my dad just mentioned, many of the high level people who can go years and years and years and get away with it. Ultimately, if we're going to think about it like this, if you believe in the creator, or you believe in spirituality or whatever your indoctrination may be, then you believe that there's going to be an ultimate judgment that you're going to be judged upon. So you might not get away with it. You might get away with it in this time, in this world, but ultimately, will you get away with it in the hereafter, if that's what you believe in? So again, it goes back to, for me, in no way, shape, or form does crime or harming others through crime does it pay. not in this world and not in the hereafter, will you get any benefit from it. And I think Brother Yusuf, he mentioned that people may seem on the outside to be very happy or be living life and lavish, but inwardly, how are they feeling? What is it that are they getting any enjoyment out of having all this money through crime? You know, what is their conscience telling them? How are they, how are they waking up? How are they sleeping? You know, all those kind of things. We can look into it and from the outside and it looks glorious, but when you look deeply into it, are those people actually happy in what they're doing? You know, are they actually happy with life, although they have these millions and millions of pounds, or they're doing this, but they're earning it through harming others? So how happy can they actually be?
Yeah.
Can I just jump in there 1 minute?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I want to add, because it touched upon something that I need to jump in on, because talking about the spiritual part of it, even though in some crime there's no victims, there is some crimes, fraud crime, where there's no victim other than a corporate victim, which some white collar people do actually do. So some people will say, well, I'm not harming nobody, I'm just taking money from the system. I'm not real, I don't feel no way because I'm just taking money from the system. I'm not harming no one, I'm not burgling nobody, I'm not robbing nobody, I'm just taking it back from the system. Then how would you answer that? Because they would answer that there's no victim. The only victim is the system, and the system have robbed from them anyway. So they would be looking at it from that person point of view.
Can I just come into what Brother Bingi just said, and even what Brother Abdul Rahman was saying? For someone like that's on the ground, going back to the character and morals, I'm gonna use my personal experience when before I changed my life around, is when I was doing such and such, I felt internally that for a short time it was fun, but after a while, when I sit and you have that spiritualness, being a Muslim and everything, you have that realization of what I'm doing is haram, and this is wrong. And sometimes it's at the back of your head where it haunts you, where it doesn't make you feel good because you know you made that wage, or you made that money cheaply. You made it easily, and it becomes so easy to the point where it has no purpose. Like you get it so easy, there's no purpose in it, there's no struggle in it. So you don't actually feel that you earned it. So someone from a low level will just, if you have that conscious mind, it's like I said, it's easier for you to step out of that and then go the right way. But what Brother Bingi said, if it's someone that's corporate and someone that are stealing from the people anyway, and if I was to steal from them, it would be kind of like a Robin Hood kind of thing where I know what they're doing is wrong. So it's almost like tick for tack, an eye for an eye kind of thing. So if they're doing it to innocent people, I'm doing it to them who are not so innocent. So how do you judge that? Would I be in the wrong from stealing from those corporate and living a lavish life, or supporting my community, or helping the poor? Would I be in the wrong from taking from those people who are taking from people unfairly, and me just saying, okay, I'm going to teach them a lesson where I'm going to take from them secretly, and then I'm going to give it back to those people who they are taking it from? How do you judge that? How do you see that point of view?
So who did you address that question to?
Anyone that wants to answer that.
All right.
I do not think, for example, let me speak of this in Islamic perspective. Robin Hood is not good person in Islamic perspective. You cannot take something by illegal means to save those who are suffering, for example. Why? Because as you can see that maybe you, in your view, you are not harming anyone. But for example, if you are stealing from government, what if that money you stole could have been used to provide one of the social service? to the good people again. Number one. Number two, even if it's not going to be, let's say you are stealing from a very successful corporation, which is not giving back as much to the society, and you choose to steal from such corporation in order to help the society. We as Muslim, in religious perspective, you cannot use the means, the purpose, the end point does not justify the means. If you are doing something illegal, then, and if we are going to accept it, the question is, what is going to be the boundary then after that? Someone else may do something, may steal from an individual rich, and the argument could be this individual rich, he has so much surplus, so I'm taking it from him and I'm giving to someone who doesn't have, and then this will go on, and justification will never stop that you can do evil in order to do good. In Islam, and I mean, and I believe in many other systems, this is not something acceptable, that just because what you are going to do in the end is good, then evilness should be eradicated. I don't think that is right, and I believe that should not be encouraged as well. So that is my perspective. So anyone else want to contribute in this?
On my side, I'm thinking when we're talking about crime, it doesn't matter either you are taking to the rich people or from the robbers or from whoever get the money illegally and try to give it to another person who maybe was really need. Because as man is saying in term of the Islam, that is gonna be haram anyway. That is prohibited. So it doesn't matter if you are taking that for the sake of giving to the people in need. But to me, it's a crime, still a crime. However, you're not gonna hurt no one because we are just using a system, but that's still gonna be counted as a crime. And when the system or when the government or law will catch you, definitely gonna face the consequences to me. So I don't believe that it has to be leeway because someone use illegally way to get money from the drug dealers or from the government just because I wanted to feed or I wanted to give people in need. So to me, crime is a crime. Either you are doing from the wrong people to make sure the people in need that wanted to get something out there, still is going to be a crime. And once when you be caught, you'll be caught. That means you will get the consequences of that. So to me, that is not right.
Thank you, Brother Omar. Anyone want to chip in before we move on with this point? I think it has been discussed enough. There's a comment here on the comment section I would like to read to you by Joe. He said, "I agree. The youth know of the risks of associated with crime. They are also aware that some get away with it. Fear of prison isn't the way. Has to be there has to be a moral or religious angle." So his point is, yes, some people who are being involved in criminal activities, they know that it can be beneficial. However, they also know some people can get away with it. So you need to have that perspective of other angles, such as morals, high moral standards, as well as religious angles, in order for someone to be prevented to prevent himself from being involved in criminal activities. Now, let's move into the social consequences of being a criminal. We understand that when you're committing crime, there are some significant psychological consequences, such as uh, shame, maybe, or guiltiness, or regret, which could lead to mental problems. So let's have a discussion. What are really do these people who are involved, and maybe if we have example, do these people who are involved in crime, do they go or suffer some emotional consequences? So I'll leave it to anyone who would like to answer that question, please.
Um, they do. They do because they have a stigma that socially that is presented for them. So that stigma tends to stick because they're only seen for one thing that okay, this guy is a drug dealer, and even though he might have that person might have a justifications for what he's doing, or he might be doing it out of a sense where he feels like, oh, I'm only doing it for this reason. But other than that, I still have another side to me where I do this and I do this, where they feel like they're not a bad person. but society and socially, people think people that are in that line of work are horrible human beings. So that plays into effect emotionally because then they feel judged, and then mentally and emotionally it does affect them. It will affect any person if they are portrayed a certain way when they don't see that they are that type of person themselves, unless someone likes to be that type of person and they want to be classed as, okay, if everyone thinks about me being like this is what I want them to think like. But there are some people that don't want people to see them in that light, even though they're doing certain things that they shouldn't be supposed to. That's not socially acceptable, I should say.
Um, I would like to still stick there. Social and emotional consequences of being involved in illegal activities. Any other views, please?
Yeah, I'd like to come in there. I think when you talk about from a mental point of view, I think the only time where somebody's going to suffer socially or mentally is if they're ready to make that change, where people are still looking on them in the way that they used to be.
Mm.
Because I think if you are a known criminal who have been involved in things for many years and then you make changes in your life, I think someone is going to always have that perception of you. And I think that might affect somebody who is not able to ignore the fact that other people are not accepting that he has made them changes. But if you are a strong person spiritually and you know that you have made them changes and you have transcended to another thinking, then it would be all right. But there's a lot of people who it could affect socially and mentally if they have made changes. But I think if you haven't made changes and you're still involved in criminal activity, I don't think that it is going to bother much people mentally or socially.
Okay, Brother Bing again, tapping on the same point. Do you think these people are living, they have
Say that
happiness in
again.
their life? Even if, let's say, they haven't changed and it doesn't affect them mentally, you said, but do you think they live happily? Do they have happy life?
Well, I think again, some of these questions are subjective. I think it's hard to generalize because even when somebody is not involved in criminal activity and they're working a 9 to 5 honest living, they can go through social and mental issues and unhappy lifestyle. So I don't think crime you can generalize and say just because you're involved in crime that you're not living happy, because you have people who are not involved in crime and they're unhappy and they've got social problems, they've got mental problems. So I think it's kind of subjective. And if I was to answer that honestly, I think that the majority of people who are involved in crime don't want to be involved in crime. It's just the social inclusion of or the social position that that force them towards that direction. Because some people look at it and say, "Well, I'm living hand to mouth. I cannot afford to send my kids to school or buy them the right garments and tools that they need to go to school. They're not eating a proper nutrition meal. Um, Even today, no, I think it's the cost of living is one of the hardest thing that people have to cope. And I think that even the crime rate will go higher than it is, because I think they were saying the other day I was reading that the crime rate over the last 5 years have gone up like 30%. That's a crime.
Wow.
Overall crime rate has gone up 30%. And I know they said it went down over COVID, but since COVID has opened, it's gone back up again. So I think it's kind of subjective to whether somebody who was involved in crime is happy or not. It's hard to answer that question.
Okay.
Thank you. But don't you?
I have to chop in a bit there. I think, based on what we hear, I don't think, because there is a kingpins who maybe we are thinking they are living very happily life because they are using other people who are the face. So for them, it's like their background where they're not gonna be seen that they are doing that kind of business. However, they might gonna be known they are doing that business, but people to get to them, it will take some time to get to them because evidence and everything. For example, I was just following up the story of Escobar. I think Escobar, yeah, Escobar in Colombia. If you look at him, he used to live even hiding areas where it was very, very difficult for the government to find him just because he was not enjoying his life. If you look into that, you see he has to live somewhere far away from his family, from his mother, his wife, and kids. So to me, doing crime just for the sake of earning quick money is not gonna make you feel good and live happy life. So it doesn't matter how much you earn, but in terms of life, you're not gonna live good life.
I think adding to that, I think although as I agree to some extent with Brother Bingi that it's something which is quite subjective and it depends on maybe mental strength of an individual or the style of involvement and so on, and some people might be affected and some people might not be affected. But in my opinion, all in all, if you are involved in crime, one of the problem you will always be looking over your shoulders, and that in itself is kind of unhappiness that is not being experienced by those who are suffering, for example, from 9 to 5 jobs because it doesn't provide enough. It's kind of different. I remember there was a brother who was reformed and he was involved in music and drugs and things like that, and he was very successful. He was very successful to the level that he was with Tupac, and he came to our mosque a few years ago, and he was talking about his life. He said he was a millionaire, but he had to sleep with a gun under his pillow, and he was always looking over his shoulder, especially after Tupac was killed. And he realized that he needed to change his life because even though he had everything he wanted, but he was quiet, uncomfortable. He never felt secured, and eventually he decided to turn into Islam. And he felt that even though he's not making as much money as as before when he was involved in music and drugs and things like that, but he is much happier. So I think in some perspective, yes, some people do suffer, even though there might be they might be going through some financial success and other forms of success, but emotionally that might be suffering and suffering in silence because they cannot go to for example, a consultant and say, I need help because I'm selling drugs and I'm always looking over my shoulders and I'm very uncomfortable with my life. They cannot get that service. So maybe that is one of the perspective such people might be suffering, and we don't know that. If you meet him in the street, all you see is what he's dressing, the kind of car he's driving, the kind of a house he's living in. But this person, maybe internally, he's seriously suffering. Maybe that is one area we could point out. Now let's move on. We know that there are some in legal consequences. One of the consequences of dealing, for example, in being involved in any criminal activity is a jail sentence. For example, if you are selling drug A, if you are caught selling drug A, kind of class A
That's it.
kind of drugs, such as cocaine, maybe, or heroin, or crystal meth, and these kind of drugs, the minimum sentence is 7 years, and it can go up as high as up to life sentence. So, and we discussed in the previous session the consequences of life in prison. And if you did not watch that, and if you want to know the details, please you can go to our channel. We have a whole video, and Brother Bingi was very much informative in that one in that video. So. But what I want to talk about, because we've already discussed the consequences of being in prison, today I want to talk. I want us to discuss about after prison sentence. How is it difficult for you to come back and maybe even if you want to be reformed, or maybe even if you are not reformed, how is it difficult to come back to the society and live again in terms of maybe finding a job or reconnecting with family or whatever you've missed out during the time you are serving your sentence, how is it difficult to reconnect with the society?
Is that directed? You want me to answer that?
Yes, please, go on.
Okay. All right then. This is from my personal experience. Because of the type of person that I am, it wasn't hard for me to come out of prison and to find my feet. I spent a lot of my time in prison studying. Um, I studied journalism. I did level 2 and level 3 journalism. I did IAG course level 2, and I'm now starting to do level 3, which is advice and guidance. I did team leader courses, and I also did mentoring courses. So I already had my intention by doing mentoring inside the prison walls, what I wanted to do outside. So I was determined. So when I got released from prison, it's kind of strange because I've never worked a 9 to 5 job for anyone. I've always worked myself. I've always been into my own self-employment. I've had nightclubs, I've had restaurants, I've had clothing business and a music business. So and this time I came out and it didn't find me. I've been out 7 months and I've had 3 jobs. I've been 2 drivers, driving for Menzies, delivering magazines and newspapers, and I drive for every delivering parcels. My present job now, I am what you call an education inclusion mentor, which deals with year 7 and year 9 pupils. These are the ones who would deemed to be possibly heading towards being groomed, county lines, involved in some kind of criminal activity. My job now is to mentor these on a one-to-one basis and try to persuade them if they are going down that road where they're heading for at the moment. So personally, I have never had no problems coming out of prison and finding my feet. The one problem I have had coming out of prison, in prison you have the taps. The taps in prison you have to press down. So when you use them in prison, you can't flood because you press them down, they automatically come off. So since I've come out, I've turned on my taps a couple of times and forgot to turn it off and nearly flood my house 2 times. So that's the only problem I've had since I've come out.
Thank you.
Well, that
Thank
was
you,
lovely.
Brother Big. Thank you, Brother Big. We are glad that I'm glad that you shared that experience and you have actually, we understand you're quite a reformed person and you're back on your feet and you're living in your life and you're happy. And you're a perfect example that you can live that lifestyle, you can live that style and become integrated into society and give back as well, help people who are going through those issues as you are doing now. So there is life after prison, we agree. But I will still ask the same question to other people. Anyone wants to
Yeah,
contribute that?
I would just add to what Brother Bingy said. Personally, I just feel like whoever comes out, it determines on how determined they are to make that change, and mentally it starts with mental strength. So if you're mentally strong, and if you're driven, and if you're focused, if you come out of prison, then it will be easier for you to get back on your feet and have that strive. But if while you was in prison, mentally you wasn't focused and you wasn't thinking about the outside, you was just doing whatever you're doing. So if you come out, it's if you don't have a plan whilst you're out, and if you haven't prepared yourself to be out and come back to society, it's easy for you to fall back into the same habits as before. If mentally you haven't prepared yourself, or you didn't do the work or use the time while you was inside to prepare for a life of being outside. So it depends on the person and their character mentally. So while you're in there, if you just focus for me. focus for me is it's very important. If you're focused on something and if you're planning on living a certain way, then inshallah that's exactly what it's gonna be.
And if I can just add something to something Brother Yusuf had just said, which I need to add. From a spiritual point of view, yourself as Muslims will also know this, and there's a thing what you have to have what you call restraint. I personally, I will hold up my hand and I will say to everybody, everything I've done over my lifetime, which I deem to be bad, I did it off of my own head. I wasn't being led. I wasn't being bullied. I did it off of my own head because as far as I was concerned, I was doing something I wanted to do to achieve what I wanted to achieve. But I'm also a strong-minded person. I'm a person, I'm a vegan. And if I don't drink, I don't smoke, even though I get stereotyped because I'm a Rasta, but I don't smoke, never have smoked. And I'm a person, I can stop doing something just like this. If I say I'm not going to eat something, I will just stop eating. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday in regarding all they think, a family member was saying, no, they think I'm a strong-minded person. But I said, everybody can be strong-minded, because if you have to one day say, I'm going to stop doing something, all it is about having restraint, and saying, I'm not going to do it. So from my point of view, if somebody comes out of prison and say they're not going to get involved in crime, if you've got restraint within yourself, you can stop doing it. There's nothing too hard. This is why I say it's down to your mindset. If for somebody to rehabilitate or to reform themselves, it doesn't start with prison. Prison cannot. You can give somebody 20 odd years, lock them in the in segregation for all their sentence. If they are not going to change, they will never change. It's about you yourself saying, well, listen, I'm going to stop doing that and I'm going to start doing this. And that's what it's all about. It's as simple as that. I might making it sound simple, but it is simple from my point of view.
I would like to add to that as well. It's something that was made in the comment earlier on as well, and something that was just mentioned. It's definitely a mindset thing. Definitely a mindset. If you want to, you have some, especially young people right now, their mindset is set towards one thing and one thing only. They see the glitz and the glamour. They look at everyone else on the outside. They look at how easy things are. Nobody wants to work hard now. So the mindset is that this is what they want to do and this is how they're going to achieve it. If they change that mindset, then inshallah ta'ala, they'll be guided to the right path. The other thing as well, which was the key thing, is in the comment that was made earlier on, was morality, regardless of your religious belief or whatever else. If you have the normal humane morals, then a lot of those things are wrong. Are wrong, and you know that you shouldn't be involved in. But right now, it's like morals and standards, and we spoke about, I think, in our first session about this, like communities and morals and manners and stuff like that of kind of like being lost. And I sent brother Umar a video the other day of some young people fighting with machetes, maybe about this long, and it was in the middle of a very popular and busy road in Leeds, and nobody stopped. Nobody stopped them. The first thing everyone did was take their phones out and start to record it. You had these two young people or whatever there was, and they were just going at each other. They was just chopping each other. A lot of us are scared. A lot of us are scared to get involved. A lot of us are scared to stop these kind of things because we think and feel that we're going to be affected by it. But again, it just goes back to the fact that there's no morals and standard in society anymore. Because if I was, for example, in my car and I saw those young people chopping each other up or whatever else, and I decided to take matters into my own hands and, I don't know, use my car to stop them, run them over, disable them at that time, I would probably be the one that gets into trouble, you know?
There's no. Can I say something? There's no might be. You would go to prison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
Because I'm just gonna jump in and say something quickly. When I was inside, there was a person doing 9 years, and he was in Huddersfield. He was driving his car, and there was 2 youths on a moped shooting after somebody, and he used his car to ram them off the moped. The police arrested one of the youths on the car and got the gun back. The youth them with the gun got something like 3 years, and he got 9 years for taking the law into his own hands. So you have to mind what you're doing when you come into things like that.
And see, this is what I mean. So it goes into like the social and the moral injustices that can go on in society. You know, like we was talking about, it takes a village to raise a child, and we spoke about the fact that you could see my child, and I would have no problem with you telling my child off. But society and the way that we're governed right now, it doesn't allow that to happen. You could go to prison for telling my child off or grabbing my child to bring them home to me. I might not have a problem with it, but the law and the law of the land or the morals of the land you get into trouble for standing up and trying to be a good person. So it's difficult.
Can I just add one thing? I know it's just a little bit off topic, but going back to the morals, and you made a good example of you two kids with a machete trying to kill each other, and the first thing people do is pick up their phones. Do you feel like, because I feel like people have been programmed, or there's just this thing right now where if you see something like that, our morals in this society, it's the first thing you need to do is pick up your phone, record it, and share it instead of doing something about it. And you just picking up your phone, recording it, and sharing it, you've done something about it, because now the police can see those videos, so they can go to those kids and they have the evidence and they have everything. Do you think that that's the moral high grounds now? When you see something, you have to record it as an evidence for if the police need the evidence, or
I personally don't think people record for the evidence. Last week we were in our another program, we were discussing about the effects of social media. People aren't recording for the sake of evidence. They're recording for the sake of viewership. They're recording for the sake of showing other people, and it's about content sharing. Yeah. It's not about they want to help the police or they want to stop it. No, that's not the motive behind their recording. Going back to the discussion we've had and the contribution
let me put a point to Yusuf's point, because Yusuf, I don't think that it's going to be very difficult to take your phone out of the pocket and press 999 just to inform.
I know. No one's doing that, and I know mostly it's like context. But I'm saying morally, right now, that's some people. That's what they do, like for content use or for sharing views and everything, and that's where we've come to right now. And even Brother Abdul Rahman said, for him, for instance, if he would have seen that, he out of his own morals is, I'm gonna do something about it. I'm not gonna sit and watch. Or if I saw something, or if anyone in the panel saw something, is we're gonna go stop this because it's not right, or we're gonna try to resolve it. But as Brother Bingy said, if you do that, it might fall back on you. When morally, that's something that you should be doing. But as a society right now, that's not encouraged.
Thank you, Brother Yusuf. I wanted to add something into our discussion, especially what was said by Brother Abdurrahman and Brother Bingi. They all mentioned about how, you cannot take matters into your own hand because eventually you are going to suffer the consequences, even though your intention was to help the situation or to save someone from the situation. And what I wanted to add, that this is the problem of human laws. They are always not good enough. let me give you the example of spiritual perspective on the same issue. In our religion, in Islam, we have a very famous hadith, the saying of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. He said, "Innamal a'malu bin niyyat." Actions are judged by the intention, not by the consequences. Because if your intention is to help, according to Islamic law, you will be judged according to your intention that you are trying to help the situation. But unfortunately, human laws aren't like that. So that's what I wanted to contribute. We are almost towards the end of our program. So now I will give you, each one of you, inshallah, a few minutes to wrap up the session and give us your personal conclusive remarks. So we should start with
Hang on, I just want to ask
brother.
Brother Bing a question because he mentioned that when he was in prison, his intention that he wanted to change and he educate himself while he was there. So my question to him is he telling us at the prison there is an opportunity of people to improve their skills or to learn for any sort of jobs which they will help them want when they're coming out?
I didn't get all of that. You cut out a little bit. Will you repeat what you said, please?
I was asking that if you are in prison, there is any chance to increase your either knowledge of something or study of
Or skills.
anything that will come out, help you out when you. I mean, it will help you when you're coming out.
All right, then. I'm gonna explain something about prison from that point of view, which is this is one thing about being in prison. If you go to prison and you are illiterate, meaning you cannot read and you cannot write, it is by prison by most prison standards and policy, you have to achieve level 1 in maths and English. You have to do it. There's no if or buts or maybes about it. When you go to prison, most prisons, not all of them do, but most prisons, you have to achieve level 1 or level 2 if you are going to get a good position in prison to work, i.e., to get a good position, whether it be a server job, cleaner job, a mentoring job, you have to have level 1 and 2. Moving on from there, if you already have a standard of qualification, you can apply to do open uni, and there's a prison trust which will pay for you to do any course, A level up to A level, diploma or whatever. You can put yourself in a position to do any qualification you want if you are in prison. This is why there's no excuse for anybody who goes to prison and come up with some kind of elevated educational intellectual knowledge, because you can, if you've got A levels in philosophy, you can move on and get a diploma in that within the prison system. So the answer to your question is, it's up to you. It's your mindset. If you go into prison and you say, I'm not going to sit down for 2, 3, 4 years doing nothing, I'm going to study. It's there. It's there. You might as well take it for nothing. You don't have to pay for it. You can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for for letting us know about this, and for those who think that reforming can be a difficult thing. Yes, we can agree to some extent. Yes, it can be difficult, but Brother Bingi is a very good example, and he has given us so much for us to understand that if you have the determination and you have the intention to change, there is always a path you can go through and become a better person, and also do something beneficial to yourself, to the community, to your family, and to society at large. So now, because of time, we're running out of time. I would like to continue with this discussion, but we need to keep our promise of running the session for about an hour or so. So I would like to give opportunity to everyone and wrap up the session by giving us the conclusive remarks. Brother Yusuf.
Yes. Conclusive remarks about today's session. Yeah, back to what I said at the beginning. Someone that's leading a life of crime. Um, It comes down to morals and characters. Morals and character. If for them to feel guilty or to feel any type of way of the life that they're living and to leave that, it just comes down to moral and character. Yes, spirituality does play some form, but some people are not as spiritual. So if some people are not as spiritual, it comes down to their morals and characters as a human being.
Okay, thank you very much. Brother Abdurrahman.
Um, so my closing comments would be in answer to the question that's on the screen in full. Um, does crime pay? It would be depending on your mindset. You may think that it will pay for you, and it may pay for you in the short term. But if you was to go to prison for um 10, 20 years or whatever it may be, or even a couple of years, the money that you made as a low level criminal, as many of our youth are, you could have made the time that you wasted, you could have made working for £10.50 an hour in Aldi or one of the supermarkets, earning an honest living. So my message would be to the youth that crime doesn't pay, because you're wasting your life and you're wasting your time. And we know that in terms of religiously, والآسن نستعلم في خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. That verily mankind were in loss as it is anyway, and we'll only be, it's only through righteousness that we will gain where we need to get to. So my answer to that and my closing statements would be that crime doesn't pay, doing good pays, and we should try and bring our youth back to doing good and educating in which is good. And I guess that's what this program is for, to deter them and to make them understand that from a lived experience from people who know that doing crime, getting involved in knife crime, getting involved in drugs, getting involved in anything that's illegal, it doesn't pay. And we are here to try to guide you back to the straight path and try to deter you from doing that which is going to cause you any kind of destruction in this world and in the hereafter.
Thank you. Brother Omar Hussein, your turn now.
Right. To me, based on topic itself, does crime pay? To me, any illegal activities to make quick money, you can make a quick money. It doesn't matter it's gonna be a long term or short term, but at the end of it, definitely you might gonna face the consequences. Facing the consequences, there is a jail time, there is the killing, because some of the illegal activities, it might gonna cause you to fight. We were talking about knife crime, I think on the first topic, that there is the people that they lost their life just because they were doing a business which was illegal. So to me, if you ask me, the crime or does crime pay? Don't think it does. However, you're gonna get some money. You might gonna have a good life, a Porsche house, driving nice cars. By then, you feel, oh yeah, it pays. But at the end of it, I don't think it does, because you might gonna be caught and then you will face the consequences. So to me, crime does not pay.
Thank you, Brother Omar. Before I give it to our last speaker, I would like to read a comment here, which was written again by one of the person who is really involved, and we thank that person, Joe. He said, "Excellent point. From both morals are the foundation, and then restraint to apply the moral is key." I think he was referring to the discussion we had, and Brother Bingi was actually the one who put forward that sentence, that point. So thank you for your contribution, Joe. Brother Bingi, back to you for your conclusive remarks.
Yeah. What I want to say overall, because I don't want to repeat what everybody else has said, because I think we can always come to the conclusion, and we come to that conclusion that overall, for the majority of people, crime will never pay. And what I would say in regarding to overall, anyone who, let's not forget that anybody who was involved in crime, is not for us to think that they are bad people. They're just people who are making bad choices at this particular time. And one day they can go to sleep and wake up and find out that they want to make changes in their life, because it doesn't make the difference how bad you are or wrong you are doing things. You can always make that change in your life. That's one thing I want to see. So if there's anybody who's out there who's involved in any badness, we're not trying to say that you are evil people. I just think that you're making bad choices, and it's for you to sit down and start making the right choices. And also, as well as warning my son, if he sees anybody driving, when he's driving, chopping up each other, do not try to get involved. Not only from the police point of view, a lot of these kids nowadays, they could turn on, the two of them could turn around and turn on you and start chopping you up, because that is where we are at this stage. So me personally, unless it was kids I directly knew, me personally, I wouldn't get involved, because for two reasons. I know that the police, with my background, I would probably get into problem. And number two, the kids might try to turn on me. So I might say in my car and shout and say, listen, stop what you're doing. The police are coming. Other than that, I wouldn't try to intervene. And I wouldn't advise anybody to intervene for two reasons. Legally, you could get into problem, and you could also get injured yourself.
Thank you very much, Brother Bingi, for your contribution. I personally, our topic today, we were discussing about, does crime pay? And we've had so many different answers, but for me, I would like to say that as much as you think there are some benefits, they could be temporary. Eventually, we need to remind you. We all know these things, but we are here to remind each other. And the reminder is there are legal consequences of being involved in criminal activities. It could be being arrested, imprisonment, fines, criminal record, which could result, for example, to have limited opportunities back in society, difficult to obtain employment, housing, and other opportunities. There are also social consequences, because criminal behavior could damage personal relationships, reputation, trust, and it could lead to social isolation. And it could be very difficult eventually to build a positive relationship with other people. There are some emotional consequences in being involved in criminal activities. Committing crime have a significant psychological consequences, including guiltiness, shame, regret, which could lead to some people, not everyone, but it could lead to some mental health issues. Also, there are some financial consequences in being involved in crime. Committing a crime could have significant financial. First of all, most of the time, finances that comes from criminal activities tends to be very unstable, and that in itself is a problem. There could be some cost involved, for example, legal fees, fine, restitutions, which could be significant. And there could also, you could be harming people by being involved in criminal activities. You are harming the humanity in general. Maybe those who are taking drugs you're selling, maybe the person you've stabbed, and you could be harmed yourself. How many criminals are being shot themselves, either by the police or maybe by the fellow criminals? So there are always some consequences eventually, as you could be enjoying some few benefits in short run, but eventually there's a likelihood of you suffering some consequences by being involved in criminal activities. So thank you again. I would like to sincerely thank all those who are in this session, our online contributor, Joe, those who are with me, Brother Bingi, Brother Yusuf, Brother Abdurrahman, and my co-host, my fellow co-host, Omar Hussein. Thank you very much for being involved. And we hope to see you again next week with the same team. Thank you very much, and goodbye for now.